Hi, guys. It's Monday, and I'm back again. Yay! Whew, I am tired, I gotta tell you. And I did nothing this weekend. I hung out and I went leaf peeping, and that was it. But I had a good time, and it was a lot of fun. I've never actually officially gone leaf peeping before, so this was a first for me. And the boyfriend and I had a great time. We were listening to great music and just hanging out and having a good old time. um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about NaNoWriMo stuff, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about cookbook stuff. So NaNoWriMo first, because it's that time and we're doing prep, and so I'm, big on that. So this week's NaNoWriMo, the October 4th to 10th, is world building and setting. And when it comes to my own writing, world building is actually way more important than plot pointing, because I tend to write more along the lines of I build an intricate world and then I drop my characters in and I just sort of let them run around like hamsters in a cage. And then I build the story from that. So for me, the world building part is actually way more important than character building or plot points or, specific stepping stones. And so I spend a lot of time working on how I want my world to look. So as an example, in the Taylor Mage world, it's very much the world as it is today, but with vampires. So there's no mystical special powers. There's no technology that doesn't exist. It's all the world as we understand it right now. But there's an addition of some supernatural stuff. And so when I'm working on it, I can work with the assumption that physics in the universe work pretty much the same way they do as they do in the real world. Okay, so it's kind of a shortcut, but it's also where I started with the book and where I wanted it to be. So great. Cookbooks, they don't need to have a world. That's a completely different thing. Nonfiction has its own rules, so that's gone. But in the two novels that I'll be working on in the next year, one is a fantasy novel, sort of a blend of high fantasy and steampunky kind of thing, and a very heavy sci-fi story. Both of these require a lot of world building. The sci-fi doesn't require me to create new rules, but I am moving us forward into 100 or so years in the future. I have to anticipate the progress that we'll make as human beings, not just on a technical level, but on an ecological level, on a spiritual and moral level, on a religious level, on a governmental level. All these things have to be kind of moved forward. And I have to consider where we are today, where we were 100 years ago, to decide where my characters will be 100 years from now. With the fantasy novel, I have to look at the cataclysm that happens and what humanity would do and what the fantasy races would do were this to happen. And so there's a huge, vasty amount of world building and setting going on. My sci-fi novel is very, for all it's going to deal with a lot of very technical stuff, I think it's going to be fairly lighthearted. It's going to be quips and jokes and sarcasm in there because I like writing like that. But when it comes to my fantasy, it's actually going to be a little dark, I think. Just the way that the ideas that I have for what I want to do there's going to be a lot of, well, let's be honest, death that's involved in the creation of this world. And that's going to lend itself to how the people work in it. When you look at a bunch of people who've lived all their lives in a comfortable, happy, airy place, they're going to be different than people who grew up in, war-torn, Russia, where it's dark half the year and people are starving constantly. You have different people, and so that has to be reflected in the world that I'm building, which will then reflect on the characters, because once the world is there, I'll know how they're reacting to the place where they are. So NaNoWriMo has, of course, given us some fun things. If you go to nanowrimo.org, they have the Young Novelists Workbook. It's meant for kids, but I gotta say, the Young Novelist Workbook is really awesome. It has some good ideas in it. So they talk about mood, um, talking about mood means the feeling of your novel. It's emotional quality. You can also think of the mood as how you want someone to feel while they are reading your novel. So it could be examples of playful, serious, mysterious, tense, warm, dangerous, joyous. Um, so they want you to describe settings that come up as creepy, joyous, suspenseful. They give you some ideas and then make up two or three of your own moods. And then a setting from your own novel, a setting from your inciting incident, a setting from your rising action, one from your climax, one from your falling action, one from your resolution. These give you the opportunity to create the window dressing, as it were, that your characters will be in. And even if you haven't written the plot points and you just know a big thing has to happen here in order for them to get from A to B and B to C, having that backdrop, having the pretty colors in the background, um, gives you a starting point, especially if you're prone to not knowing what to write. If you already know that they're standing on a dirty city corner when whatever it is happens, it might actually lend itself better to, oh, well, it would make sense if the big thing were a car crash, or if you're out in the country, maybe there's a stampede of cows. Um, if you're in the forest, maybe a hawk attacks them. Could be any number of things. So you can look at your set and setting and decide from there where your story's going to go. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. And you also want your settings to reinforce your characters. So that doesn't mean that your characters have to match your settings. I don't know if any of you have watched, what's that show? God, I can't remember. Anyway, let's Hobbit, because I think a lot of people have read The Hobbit. So when you think about The Hobbit, you start off. The Hobbit lived in a hole in the ground, and it wasn't a dirty, slimy hole. It was warm and comforting, and yada yada. Well, that gives you a setting, this feeling of coziness and warmth. And then we meet Bilbo. And when I think of coziness and warmth, I think of somebody who enjoys having people over for tea. So when he gets all upset at all the people around, the dwarves arriving, it's kind of anticlimactic, or almost it challenges how I thought he would react as a host, because he seems like the kind of person who would host a party, right? I have to seriously get my desktop working so I can cut out all the yawns. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm wicked tired today. Anyway, Gandalf, okay, starts out the book and starts out the Lord of the Rings. He's kind of this slightly doddering old wizard who hasn't quite got all his marbles, most of them, but not all of them. And he probably is powerful, but Gandalf the Grey is kind of a drab, grayish kind of gentleman. And then all of a sudden he has a fight with a Balrog, and he's this gleaming white dude, and he goes up a rank, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. He's way more powerful than I thought. So this is how that setting changes how you experience your characters and how you present. You can have a world that is full of amazing, happy, wonderful, joy things and have a character that's dark and morose. And it will make that person even more dark and morose and encourage you to build a good background for them, because otherwise, why would they be? Um, you can have somebody who's living in the middle of, a zombie infected inner city. It's dark and everything is awful, but they've just met the person that they love, and their personality is shining, and it shines even more than it normally would because of the dark background. Or you can use your set and setting to enhance. So, you know, the depressive person who's thinking of killing themselves is wandering down the dark, dank streets with the flickering lights and the shadows, and so there's lots of things you can do. But that backdrop, that the place where you drop your characters, is so wickedly important. So that's where I'm at with that. There's all sorts of fun things to do. Like I said, check out NaNoWriMo. They have some really fun stuff out there, and it's really good, and it will help you. Okay. Now, cookbook. So I spent a lot of time working on the cookbook this past weekend with the boyfriend, and we got a ton of the typesetting done. In the process, it ate my footnotes. They're not disappeared. They're just not in the typeset document, so they have to be entered one by one. So it's going to be a little while, but progress is consistently being made, and I'm hopeful that maybe we'll get the bulk of it done by next weekend. Knock on wood, I'm hoping. So that's where I'm at, guys. November is coming up really fast. It's October 5th. Holy cow. In less than a month, you guys are going to be a week into NaNoWriMo. Be excited. You're going to be writing soon, right? Not just prepping, but actually writing. Apparently, I'm dribbly today. So get yourself thinking about what you want. Set up some strategies so that if you hit writer's block, you know where you're going to go. You know what you're going to do. Have your world created. Sit down and figure out what people like to eat, what their favorite animal is, whatever it is that gets you going and fired up to write, and have it all set up and ready to go. And I don't know if anybody's like me. I'm having a hard time focusing on the idea that I'm going to be writing this year because nothing else has gone on this year. None of my fairs, none of my teaching, none of my, I haven't done any weddings. Nothing has happened. Everything has been canceled. And so it's like, while I want to write, it's almost like my brain is telling me, well, Nano is canceled too. Nano is not canceled. Okay. Seriously. Nano is not canceled. You can do this. I can do this. We're going to support each other. We're going to get through it, and we're going to do awesome, awesome stuff. Okay. So keep your chin up, keep your stick on the ice, and hold yourself together. If you need some words of wisdom, don't look at me, but I'll be glad to talk with you. I love you. Don't forget to subscribe and pass the video along if you know anybody who'd like it. I love you guys. If you have questions, ask below. Bye.